Hi, good afternoon. Mr. Goodwin,
Yes, ma'am.
would you introduce yourself to the pardon board? Tell us your name and your DOC number, please.
My name is Walter Goodwin, 356166.
Yes, sir, and you are represented by counsel. We'd like counsel to enter your name for the record, sir.
Mr. Dr. Keith Nordyke appearing on behalf of Walter Goodwin this afternoon.
So thank you. Now, before we get started, Mr. Goodwin, let me acknowledge the folks who have joined us. You have there with you your father, both of your parents, your father and Miss, I can't read, Latasha, is that your wife?
Lakeisha.
Lakeisha.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't read it. Reverend Willie Calhoun, Sean Goodwin, Byron Goodwin, and Father Gibson.
Ajani Gibson. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I got it. And your wife and your father want to speak on your behalf. Also joining us by Zoom in support, Gary Myers with the Parole Project, Nora Henderson with the First 72. We also have opposition today, representing the victim. Speaking will be Jennifer Stone, Jill Thompson, and Jill Jones. Also participating is William Stone and Dawn McKenzie. First, I'll read some identifying information, ask you to confirm it. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Roche. The case has been assigned to him. He'll has a presentation. I have some questions for you. We'll hear from the facility staff. We'll hear from those who indicated they'd like to speak. And before we turn it over to Mr. Nordyke, we'll ask you if you have a statement at the end. Okay. So, Mr. Good, here this afternoon seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in July 1995 in Orleans Parish to a life sentence for second-degree murder. Mr. Goodwin, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Goodwin.
Good afternoon, sir.
I have a presentation. If any of the information correct, would you please correct me, okay?
Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, before us this afternoon, we have Walter M. Goodwin Jr., DOC number 356166. Mr. Goodwin is here this afternoon seeking a recommendation for a commutation of sentence for a 1995 second-degree murder conviction. The victim was Jonathan Craig Thompson, the night manager at Russell's Marina Grill in New Orleans. Goodwin was also an employee at the time of the robbery and murder of Mr. Thompson. On April 11, 1995, after committing this crime, Goodwin fled to Jacksonville, Florida. 2 or 3 days after, he found out that law enforcement in New Orleans was looking for him, and he returned on his own volition and surrendered himself to authorities. Mr. Goodwin is currently 48 years old, and he was 19 at the time of the offense. He's been incarcerated for 29 years in April of this year. On February 9, 1995, he was found guilty by a jury of his peers of second-degree murder, but he was originally arrested in April 1994 of first-degree murder, but he was convicted by the jury of second-degree murder. On July 11, 1995, Judge Patrick Quinlan sentenced Mr. Goodwin to life and hard labor at DOC without benefit of probation, parole, or suspension in sentence. For the next 10 years. Motions were filed on Mr. Goodwin's behalf. All the motions were denied. Mr. Goodwin is a first felony offender. This is his only conviction, only arrest on his criminal record. He has no supervision history. Opposition in this case comes from the New Orleans Police Department, which is a blanket opposition because they oppose all limited requests. This is the only opposition from the New Orleans legal community. We have letters of opposition from multiple members of the victim's family. We have a letter from Jennifer Thompson Stone, the sister of the victim, Ms. Jill Amelia Thompson, another sister, and his aunt, Judy C. Scribbling, a cousin, Don McKenzie, and his brother-in-law, William P. Stone. All of these statements are lengthy, compassionate statements on how this offense caused lifelong pain, suffering, depression to the family of the victim, especially his mother, Ms. Sybil Thompson. Letters of support from multiple members of the offender's family. He has a residency plan with his father in New Orleans. He has letters of support from future employers. Mr. Goodwin has 5 employment opportunities. 1 with a nonprofit, 1 with an electrical company, 1 with a lawn care service, 1 with an embroidery company, and he has 1 from Travis Hill School. He will be employed as an advocate for at-risk students with a starting salary of $45,000 a year. All these employment opportunities are confirmed by the employer. Mr. Goodwin has a low risk assessment. He has a low needs assessment. He's housed in minimum custody. He has a high school diploma, and he presently is a senior at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. He's completed all of his reentry programming. He has a good transition plan with his father and an excellent employment opportunity with Travis Hill School. For informational purposes, this school is affiliated with Corpus Christi Catholic Church Parish in New Orleans, and it is a school mainly dealing with at-risk youth. He has a good institutional record. He belongs to the New Men Ministry. Programs completed, 100 hours pre-release, Kill Walker, Living in Balance, Parts 1 and 2, Malachi Dads, Moral Compass, and Moral Compass. He's also a mentor, victim awareness, victim accountability letter, training, thank you for a change, anger management, disciple program, and the art of decision making. Have any other programs, vocational skills, community service, or organizational participation that you would like to mention, Mr. Goodwin?
Just the Celebrate Recovery substance abuse program.
Okay, great. We've also completed Celebrate
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's discuss your disciplinary conduct. During your incarceration, you've had 54 disciplinary write-ups. Normally, I would say that was a pretty large amount of write-ups for only 29 years of incarceration. But all of your write-ups, except one, was in the first 14 years of your incarceration. In the last, since 2009, you've only had one write-up. So tell me why such a rocky start. Tell this panel what was happening that you could not follow the rules when you were first incarcerated.
Well, thank you, sir. When I first came up here, I was still lost and I was still heavily into drug use. And I had no intention of coming up here really to do anything constructive. I didn't know my way in, and I traveled around the prison in the drug culture, in the violence, and it obviously the consequences are apparent. I stayed in trouble, and my conscience was not affected by it because I was lost. I didn't have any direction at all at the time.
So in the last 11, well, let's see, no write-ups in almost what, 209, so we're talking what, 12, 13, 14 years?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Actually, only one write-up. And so tell me, what event in your life, what program did you complete? What person did you meet? Or just what happened to make you have a drastic turnaround in your disciplinary conduct?
Wow. I was at Camp F, and it's a series of things that I can say, but I first want to say that something happened to me. I had an encounter with God. He wasn't real to me. Prior to that, it was just a bunch of religiousness, but I met him for real, and he transformed my life, and he opened my eyes to all that he had given to me, and my wife, and my family. And from that time, I mean, exactly from that time, I saw the world differently. I saw that I wanted to be committed to helping people and to serving people, and not want to hurt or dishonor another human being in my life, especially the officers here and the administration here.
Mr. Goodwin, what was happening at the time when you had this transformation?
I was still getting high. Yeah, right. I was if I may say so, there was a guy named Norman Dozier who came to Camp F, and I had known this guy for years, and his walk is all that I knew, and his relationship with God, and he came in my dorm, and I just started watching him, and I asked him, what was it? You know, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And he just began talking to me, and then one night, I'm fast forwarding here, and then one night here after our talks, I was completely convicted about my need for forgiveness for the pain and the hurt that I had caused. And that night, I made a decision to follow Jesus Christ, and it completely transformed, it revolutionized my life.
So the answer to my question is Norman.
Norman,
Okay.
no.
Tell me about your last disciplinary write-up. You've only had one since 2009. In 2012, you had aggravated work offense. What was that about?
In 2009 or 2012?
2012.
2012, if I get it right, one of the write-ups pertained to I left, I think, a pair of clothes articles on the bed. And the other one, the other write-up,
You've only had one since 2012.
right?
Is
That was
correct?
right. I was just thinking about the last two, and I left some clothes on the bed while I was at work.
Mr.
Uh,
This water
yeah.
fountain real quick. I'm looking at it and there is, these are a few years old. The actual 2012 write-up was he did not report for a mandatory infection control call out to have a TB skin test read. With that being said, he was found guilty of it. He did not appeal it. He basically took his lid and took the write-up.
Right. So other than that, his last write-up was in 2009.
Yes, sir. June of 2009.
Since we had you there, Warden Falco, would you like to make any comments, remarks, or observations?
You know, again, as he's saying, I'm looking at his record right now, and he was at Camp F for quite some time. He's been a Class A trustee since 2005. And as he's speaking, I'm looking at it in January of 2010. It shows a new entry in here that he's decided education faith. And that's kind of where he took off from there. Since then, he's been in school for his NOBTS. And then in somewhere between 2019, 2020 is when he started with substance abuse, peer support. And now with the new men, he's done a great deal of work for us in this new men, getting these guys coming in, asking for help. We've, as a facility, changed our way of thinking in that if somebody out in the population does have a drug problem and they come to us, we're not writing them up anymore. They're coming to us for help, and we're in turn giving them the opportunity for help without disciplinary action. We're giving them the ability to go into this new men program and actually benefit from it. And we've had a lot of positive results with them. And Walter's been a big part of that.
Thank you, Warden. Madam Chairman, I do have a recommendation in this case, and I will share it with my fellow board members at the conclusion of this interview.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. I don't see any other questions, so we'll hear from the folks who want to speak in support. First of all, we'd like to hear from Mr. Spock, Mr. Walter Goodwin.
I don't know, right? So you can go sit right next to him right there. There you go.
Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak in support of my son, Walter Goodwin Jr. My name is Walter Goodwin Sr. I'm 76 years old. I'm a retired 30-plus year educator with the New Orleans Public Schools. For 18 of those years, I served as a junior and senior high school principal in the city of New Orleans. Prior to becoming an educator, I served 3 years in the United States Army during the Vietnam campaign and attained the rank of staff sergeant. I've been married for 51 years and had 5 children. My wife and I, together or separately, have visited Angola State Penitentiary at least twice a month during Walter's time of incarceration at Angola, going roughly about 280 miles each time. We communicate with him ongoing via mail, JPay, telephone, or video conferencing. I want you to know my family and I will be a source of support for him. And I believe he has matured and will be a productive citizen should he be released. I'd like to emphasize that I believe Walter has changed and is ready for another chance at freedom. I have witnessed his tremendous growth and maturity since he was sent to Angola. I am convinced the ministry programs that Walter has been involved in prison has positively influenced his life, perspectives, mindset, and attitude. His commitment to positive personal development has been evident to our family, and we hope you can see the tremendous adjustments he has made throughout his sentence, through his record of involvement, accomplishments, and behavior. I am praying and hoping that you can find it in your heart to have mercy on him and give him a second chance at life outside of prison. Although we have never met the victim's family, my family and I would like to say to them how remorseful we are for the grief my son has caused them these past years. I want to sincerely extend my thanks to the board members once again for permitting me to speak in support of my son.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. It's Lakeisha Goodwin.
Good afternoon to the members of the board. My name is Lakeisha Swinney Goodwin. Walter and I have been in a relationship for 29 years and married for the past 6 years. Over the years, I have seen the growth and maturity transform in Walter to the man that he is today. I love him dearly. If the board if the board recommends in favor of Walter, you can be assured that he has my love and support for the rest of our lives. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Henderson.
Again, good afternoon. I know the Goodwin family. I've been knowing them for a long time. And just like his father said, Big Walter, they have been in education all their lives here in the city of New Orleans. I was just recently invited to the New Men program as their keynote speaker. And to see the work that they have put in. One of the things about the program, I think that the success comes from, and I tell people all the time, those are closest to the problems or that much closer to the solution. And because Walter Jr.'s past history with substance abuse, he knows how to interact with the individuals that's going through the program. The fact that the institution has dedicated not only one dormitory, but a dormitory in the cell block towards the transformation and the healing of these individuals speaks volumes in and of itself. And for Walter and his colleagues to be the spearhead of this particular group, and for me to see these individuals who I knew who was so far in the woods, to see that they have come in out of the ram is a testament to Walter's service. And I'm a firm believer that service to humanity is the best work of life. And if y'all get the opportunity to visit this program, and I know we've been recommending people to Steve Hurl, well, we have our own Steve Hurl right there inside the belly of the beast. And I think that would be advantageous for individuals who need substance abuse treatment to actually be sent to Angola to go through that program. Walter and Gordon has done a miraculous job with their program. And I know for a fact, Walter have all the wraparound services that he would need coming home. I see Pastor Calhoun sitting behind him, who is one of the renowned ministers in our community that does a lot of work, and especially in the lower ninth ward, helping rebuild. And Walter have all the tools. Walter have acquired the tools he needs to do the things that he needs to do, with the help of not only folks like myself, his family, his brothers. And like I say again, there's a job waiting on Walter to kind of like do what he's doing right now, to kind of like talk to these young men in our community that have kind of like fallen. So I would just ask that the board would actually really take in considerations Walton request for clemency and make a recommendation to the governor on his behalf. Thank you.
Everybody just hang on. We seem to have lost the board.
All right, I apologize, folks. We had some technical connectivity issues here at DOC headquarters. I think we're back online now, and we cut out, Norris, when you were concluding your statement, but we understood what you said, and we're going to move on and hear from the others who'd like to speak. Thanks, all of you, for your patience. Mr. Myers with the Parole Project.
Yes, good afternoon. Kerry Myers with the Louisiana Parole Project, here to tell you that we are eager and ready to take Mr. Goodwin as a client into our program should he be granted today and eventually get released. Prison saved Mr. Goodwin. This is a perfect example of corrections doing exactly what it was supposed to do. And it may have taken a little time, but I think it's clear from what's been presented here today in his record when the light came on. And when it came on, it stayed on, it's still on, it'll continue to be on. So we just ask you to consider, you know, the Mr. Goodwin who is here today in front of you, and the time that he served and the good that he has done and will do, and recommend his clemency today.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to hear from the opposition. Let's see, I think we have Jennifer and William Stone who are together, and it's been explained, folks, that you have 3 minutes for the both of you to speak. Try to 3 minutes if you want to go ahead and speak now. Still on mute.
Thank you. I am satisfied that the state of Louisiana convicted the right person because I know that Walter Goodwin murdered my brother, Jonathan Craig Thompson. I'm not satisfied with the verdict of second-degree murder because I believe that Walter Goodwin intended to kill my brother. I forgave Walter almost 28 years ago, but this is not about forgiveness. This is about whether Walter is fit to be out of prison. He's never admitted to murdering my brother. He's never taken responsibility for the murder. He's consistently said that he didn't do it, that someone else did it, and that he was framed. His 2 appeals on records are clear about his insistence that he didn't do it. The first apology that I've heard is today from his father, not from him, and his family lied on the stand for him. He's never reached out to me or apologized to me or my family or asked for forgiveness. I think he poses a risk to the safety of others if he's released. When he was sentenced for second degree with no possibility of parole, we thought that that was final and that we would never be here and never have to face the possibility of him being released.
So soon after Walter murdered Craig, one of his fellow co-workers told me that within a week or 2 before the murder, Walter had told him that he was going to have to pop a cap on Craig in retaliation for Craig holding him to account to perform his work duties at work. And Craig was his supervisor. I never heard that come out at trial, but I did tell a detective, and perhaps that witness was too afraid to admit out loud that he had knowledge of Craig's intent to murder Craig. When the jury, just before the jury announced their verdict, they returned to the courtroom to ask the judge to distinguish between the penalties for first and second degree murder. They only would have asked that question if they already thought Walter was guilty of first degree murder. The judge assured the jury that even if they did not convict Walter of first degree murder with a mandatory death sentence, Walter would never be released from prison if they instead convicted him of second degree murder, which they then promptly did. Now, exploiting the technicality of his being convicted of only second degree murder and a change in Louisiana law designed to save the costs of incarcerating lesser offenders those those who actually committed only second-degree murder, Walter presses himself upon us to grant him freedom, to deprive us innocent people of our promised permanent protection from him. I strenuously oppose his release as flatly inappropriate.
Thank you. We appreciate your participation, Jennifer and William Stone. Next, we'd like to hear Jill Thompson.
Yes, hi. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I agree with Jen and Bill that Walter should have a life sentence. My brother has a final life sentence. His sentence is final. This one should be as well. This should not be thrown out. He's never admitted, as far as I know, that he actually did this until last year, I believe, so that he could apply for this clemency hearing, that he had to admit it. Another thing I've noticed today, because we've been waiting all day watching other hearings, is that the board has questioned many of these convicted criminals about their crime today. You haven't really questioned him that much, I think, about this crime, like you have other prisoners. But you're questioning him about his write-ups, which were pretty recent. I find it hard to believe that he has miraculously found God and now wants to get out of prison. I don't think he should be released. I think he's cocky and a danger to society. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Ms. Jill Jones.
I think he's cocky and a danger to society. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Jill Jones.
Yeah, okay, hey, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, board. I remember leaving the courtroom following the verdict. And what I saw was two broken families, the Walter Goodwin family and the Sybil Thompson family. All of this heartache was caused by Walter Goodwin. It was a senseless, cold-blooded murder. I remember telling.
Start over.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir. We can.
I'm sorry.
You have another device going?
Okay, can I continue on now?
Yes, sir.
I remember telling my wife, Craig's aunt, how sorry I felt for the Goodwin family. To this day, I can't imagine how they dealt with the pain caused by such a wayward offspring. I feel so sorry for the Goodwin family. To my knowledge, Walter Goodwin has never expressed remorse or asked Craig's two sisters for forgiveness or apologized for the murder of Craig Thompson. Craig's mother, Sybil Thompson, died of a broken heart, but I've seen no evidence that Walter Goodwin cared. Walter Goodwin came across as a well-mannered, nice guy. Don't believe it. Walter Goodwin is a cold-blooded murderer, exactly as he demonstrated. Walter Goodwin murdered Craig Thompson. He murdered Craig Thompson execution style. On his knees, Craig pleaded with Walter to not kill him. When Walter made the choice to shoot Craig Thompson in the back of the head anyway, Walter could have taken the money and left, but Walter chose to murder Craig. Craig Thompson's late mother, Sybil Thompson, asked the district attorney to not seek the death penalty. The late Sybil Thompson showed compassion for the Walter family, Goodwin and Walter Goodwin, but Walter, no accountability, no remorse. It's still all about Walter Goodwin, and he still doesn't care. Remember, this was not a crime of opportunity. It was not a crime of passion. It was a crime of anger. It was not a crime of anger. This was a calculated, cold-blooded murder, all for a few dollars. How sad. In closing, I fear for those who were called to the witness stand to testify, to tell the sworn truth. Walter Goodwin doesn't deserve to walk among free men. Walter Goodwin received a life sentence without parole, and Walter Goodwin needs to remain where he is for the rest of his life for murdering Craig Thompson and for the safety of others, including any future employees. I'd be very leery of hiring this guy. Thank you.
All right, Walter, Mr. Goodwin, is there, before we turn it over to Mr. Nordyke, is there a statement you'd like to make?
I know that there are no words that I can say to you that will convey just how utterly crushed I am by my sorrow and my remorse for taking Craig away from his family. And I know that I can't say anything to take away the pain and the hurt. But I am so thankful just for the opportunity to try to say it. And I'm so very sorry.
So thank you, Mr. Nordyke.
Mr. Roche did a fantastic job of bringing out most of the points that I would bring out in at this stage. So I'm not gonna echo it, other than to say that in summary, he's taken every class that the board would normally request of him. I do want to address a couple things that came up in the course of the hearing. And I want to start with the apology issue. As a matter of law, Walter was not allowed, is not allowed, and has not been allowed to make any contact with any of the victim's family to make an apology. There's nothing he could have said, or else he would have been prosecuted yet again. So for what it's worth, he has expressed remorse and sorrow to me from the beginning. The fact that he has not been able to apologize is not his fault. It's the statutory scheme that keeps him from that. He is 29 years into this sentence now, and that's a pretty good length of time. The last write-up I think he had that I have a note on was he left socks on the bed. It was a low court write-up. It wasn't a Class B write-up. So that was in 2011 or 12. Been a trustee since 2005. Now, what this board often looks for, other than the trustee status and the courses and that sort of thing, is the extent to which somebody has given back during their time in prison. Walter hadn't talked about this, but I'm going to, and that is the New Men Ministry that has been spoken of. There's a dorm and a cell block, as I understand it, that has been now devoted to this New Men Ministry. Walter was one of the founders of that, and is apparently an incredibly successful program. As you heard from the warden, it's got the support of the administration. And Walter, as a trustee, could have lived in one of the trustee dorms. He doesn't. He has to live, not has to, he does live. He chose to live among those that are still afflicted with chemical dependency issues and all of the personality problems that those bring to the forefront. So he lives with those guys and ministers to those guys within their own environment. He's low risk, he's low needs, he's got a high school diploma. And something else that he didn't tell you is that even assuming, let's assume the board gives him a recommendation today. It would be a minimum of 120 days before a parole hearing could be signed, even if the governor signed it today, which of course it won't. He will have completed his bachelor's degree at NOBTS by the time that happens. He is in his last course of his last semester. And by May, he will be a graduate with a bachelor's degree. So that needed to be said, that needed to be talked about. The last thing I want to say is that, and I think Mr. Roche covered it adequately, but the road to redemption is not the same for everybody. And we have heard over the course of many years, a number of different paths that people have taken to get to the chair where Walter sits now. Some people come at it with a couple of write-ups. Some people come to it with a number of adjustment write-ups early in their incarceration. They all get to the same place, or most of them do, and Walter certainly has. So I think that as Mr. Roche discovered, or perhaps I think probably knew when he asked the question, Walter's early years were an adjustment problem. And then he had that light bulb go off, and it has stayed. It has stayed on, as Kerry put it. So I would ask the board to commute his sentence and give Walter a chance to come home and do the work he's doing now with at-risk youth in the New Orleans area. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I believe we are prepared to vote. Mr. Roche will be first.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Goodwin, based upon you completing all basic rehabilitative programs, the community service you rendered with the new men's ministry, an improved disciplinary record, a good transition plan with a residency plan and excellent employment opportunities, positive remarks of Warden Falgood. My recommendation is to recommend to the governor he commute your sentence to 55 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Goodwin, I've listened very intently to you and all of the people who have spoken here today, and I agree with Mr. Roche. For all the reasons he's outlined, my vote would be a recommendation to the governor to sentence to 55 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Mr. Free.
Oh, I concur with Mr. Roche and Mr. Marabella, and I vote the same.
Mrs. Jackson.
All right, Mr. Goodman, but when you've done, you served your time well. Helped yourself, you helped others, and you've been in service to the institution. My vote is the same. With the new 55 years of meeting for all.
All right, Mr. Goodwin, so you've received 4 votes, 4 favorable votes. My vote is the same for all the same reasons. So, sir, on your behalf, we'll make the recommendation to the governor that you're sentenced to 55 with parole eligibility. Thank you, sir.
Thank the board.